Honorable Speaker, let me commend Honorable Walter Owino for raising that issue. Because, Honorable Speaker, it is indeed true.
Jared
Okello, for the member for Nyando. And you know, Honorable Speaker, Nyando is a constituency very close to my heart because their former member of Parliament, Fred Outa, was a very good friend of mine, and I have had occasion to visit Nyando constituency with the Honorable Outa a number of times. It's only that the current member has not invited me for fear of the unknown. But Honorable Speaker, he has raised a very important issue on the security of members. And it is indeed true, Honorable Speaker, that as the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission and the Commission, you have a responsibility in ensuring that all our members of Parliament are secure, especially when they are carrying on their work as members of Parliament. Honorable Speaker, sometime in the last Parliament, in the 12th Parliament, I was among the first victims of security withdrawal by the handshake regime. Honorable Speaker, I did raise that matter on the floor of this House. And I remember then a number of our friends who were supporting the handshake regime, especially those within ODM, celebrated the withdrawal of my security and that of other members who they then, in a very derogatory manner, referred to us as Tanga-Tanga. And they told us, you cannot be given security to Tanga-Tanga with. But Honorable Speaker, I will not fall into that category of celebrating the apparent withdrawal of security officers to members of Parliament. However, Honorable Speaker, we must also responsibly use, Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from the Honorable Babu Owino
and the team around you.
And the party leader, Jubilee.
Yes.
Honorable Speaker, I was saying I want to avoid the route taken by my colleagues in ODM to celebrate the withdrawal of security. But I was also saying, as much as Honorable Speaker, we are entitled to security. And I remember that time they told us that you are secure. You don't need policemen. The police have ensured that everybody within the country is secure. Okay. And we stayed for almost 4 years without security, Honorable Speaker, because of our political persuasion. And I would never support the withdrawal of a member of Parliament security on account of his political persuasion. However, Honorable Speaker, we must also, as members of Parliament who enjoy that rare privilege, that when most of our constituents are being terrorized by thugs and there is rampant insecurity around the country, we enjoy that rare privilege of having armed officers with us almost on a 24-hour basis. And Honorable Speaker, it is a rare privilege given to us by the people of Kenya, and therefore must not be taken away by anybody. However, Mr. Speaker, we also have a duty and obligation to make sure that we do not in any way or manner misuse those security officers. And Honorable Speaker, there have been occasions where members of Parliament, and I'm aware, Honorable Speaker, there is already a member of Parliament whose security officer was disarmed on account of misuse of the firearm. And Honorable Speaker, our officers are charged with the responsibility of protecting us to be able to execute our duties as members of Parliament without fear or without being intimidated by anybody in the streets. But our officers are not given to us, Honorable Speaker, to protect us in violent demonstrations and protests. I think, Honorable Speaker, when I listened to the Cabinet Secretary of the Interior on Monday, he did direct officers to ensure that there is law and order in Nairobi and in other urban centers where we had been threatened with violent protests, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, when the Cabinet Secretary and the Inspector General of Police, on account of the Public Order Act, says that you have not conformed to the law, you have not informed the police on where you want to picket, what roads you want to use, what times, and he says the police and directs the police as the Inspector General of Police to ensure that there are no violent demonstrations and protests, then we want to use our officers who are armed to face off with the other armed officers, Honorable Speaker. We are calling for anarchy in the country. And as much, Honorable Speaker, as I said, I would not celebrate the withdrawal of security on any member, not even Honorable Nyikal, or the Honorable John Buddy, or even Babu Owino, who even has a record of misuse of firearms himself, and is still guarded by an armed officer, Honorable Speaker. I will never, and I shall never stand to support the withdrawal of their security. But we must act responsibly as leaders. We cannot be leading youthful young men who are torching vehicles, trailers on the southern bypass, matatus, and Honorable Speaker, the matatu that was torched by goons from Kibra on Gong Road belonged to a young man from Ondire village in my constituency. That young man tells me he's still struggling to repay his loan. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, when it is us as leaders who are using police officers seconded to us to protect us, to intimidate other police officers not to carry out their duties. And Honorable Speaker, it is sad. And I said it here, Honorable Speaker, and some of the people who are crying in ODM today were the first people to shout me down when I said it was rather perturbing to see a person the stature of a former president commandeer goons, and him with armed security standing next to him, and goons chasing away police officers who are carrying out their constitutional and legal mandate, Honorable Speaker. And we're only putting our country in danger, Honorable Speaker, if we allow these things to happen. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to request you, even as you consider the request by the Honorable Jared, the member for Nyando, that as members of parliament we act responsibly. It is true, you are within your rights to picket, to demonstrate, even if you want to protest peacefully or violently, it is within your rights. But do not misuse government officers who are armed to face off with other armed government officers under the same command, Honorable Speaker. That, Honorable Speaker, I think it is only fair that we also protect our officers because they are also human beings like ourselves. Honorable Speaker, remember in Kisumu the other day, we lost a young man from Nyamira County, a police officer, who was killed by youth who were throwing stones. Nobody bothered to mourn that police officer. Honorable Speaker, people have lost property on account of these demonstrations, Honorable Speaker, and that is why I went out of my way yesterday, together with the leader of majority in the Senate, to call for sobriety. And I said, Honorable Speaker, yesterday, we bent backwards to accommodate our colleagues so that we can continue to engage with each other in this house, in an environment where we consult each other, we talk to each other, and not at each other in the streets.
Thank you.
And I want to ask, now that all these honorable members are not protesting with other people out there, Honorable Speaker, I want to request, and I'm sure, I think by now, most likely they have their officers, because when one of them told me that they had their security withdrawn, that is why many were hanging around the house here and not even joining the demonstrations because they didn't have their security. I did ask the CS of the Interior, and he told me they have indeed not withdrawn anybody's security. They have only asked their officers not to participate in protests and demonstrations. Therefore, maybe just by way of information, to inform the member for Nyando that officers were only instructed by their commanders not to participate in violent protests, but to protect the lives and property of the people of Nairobi. And Honorable Speaker, finally, let me congratulate and thank the leadership of the minority, because when we engaged, and Honorable Speaker, it is good to indicate to the country that indeed we have been in engagement with the minority leadership and the leadership of ODM and the other parties within Azimio, including the party leader of Jubilee, the Honorable Sabina Chege,